And the turmoil in Yemen threatening American efforts to combat one of the most powerful al-Qaeda branches in the world. And that's not the only problem. The death of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia triggering new fears that the instability in the Middle East may be a worst-case scenario for the United States. And Representative Ron DeSantis joins us. So, Ron, I just mentioned the administration. You know, we've heard before President Obama being surprised by certain things, that he's not showing up for intelligence briefings. Is this another missed scenario? Because this is one situation in Yemen. Yemen was actually a country that the administration pointed to as a success. So did this sneak up on the administration, or has this been pretty volatile for a long time?
Well, look, when he cited Yemen as a success just a few months ago, I winced at that because there has been a lot of instability. Of course, AQAP has been operating there for a long time. And, you know, me and some of my Republican colleagues, we have skirmishes with the president about his executive overreach. We sometimes say he acts like a king, but I don't think anyone would ever confuse this president with King Midas, because he certainly doesn't have the Midas touch. When he gets involved or he cites these examples, they tend to crumble after the fact, whether it's Libya, whether it's his involvement in Syria, and of course now, having cited Yemen, we're now looking at a situation where you're going to have Iranian-backed militants seize control of the government. The moderate Sunni establishment who we had been allied with, you know, they're being pushed out. That's going to actually give al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula more berth to be able to operate. Of course, they're a very lethal group. So this is going south very quickly, and I think the president was just naive back in September when he cited it as a success story.
And he also didn't mention al-Qaeda in his State of the Union, which is a bit strange because you talk about the Sunni government collapsing, creating this vacuum for al-Qaeda to rise up. Speak a little bit more, Congressman, about the relation and how this impacts Iran. Of course, you know President Obama saying he would veto any legislation that you or your colleagues or anyone in the Senate passes and sends to his desk. Do you sense, Congressman, that with this bill particularly on Iranian sanctions, that you may get enough support in the Senate to override a presidential veto?
Absolutely. I think we should have passed the sanctions yesterday. I hope we'll do it very soon. This administration, over the last 6 years, what we've seen is a huge increase in Iranian power. They're dominant in Iraq. They're dominant in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They're dominant in Syria, backing the Assad regime. They now have a foothold in Yemen. They're one of the leading patrons of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And I think the President and Secretary Kerry, they think somehow that we can have a collaborative relationship with Iran, that we could potentially strike a nuclear deal. That is a fool's errand as far as I'm concerned. And it's dangerous both because it could lead to Iran getting a nuclear weapon, but it's also dangerous because it alienates the Sunni Arabs in the region. And so if their choice is between Shiite-backed governments, who the United States appears to support, or terrorist groups, well, they're more apt to side with a Sunni Islamic terrorist group than if they don't think there's a chance for a middle way.
Congressman, I only have a couple seconds left, but just quickly tell me, I know Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to speak in the House of Representatives in March now. What have you been hearing about by your constituents? We know the White House isn't happy about this, but I think it's a good thing, because I think we need to have a big stick. I think the president needs a big stick, even though Joe Biden says he doesn't have, he has one. I think this is good to have Netanyahu there, because it shows the Iranians, look, if you falter, if this falters, this is whose side we're on. Quick feedback on what you're hearing.
Yeah, 100% agreement. My constituents support Israel. I think we need to stand with Israel. And the president is outside of the mainstream on this issue, not just with Republicans, but with Democrats as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Representative, thanks so much.
Thank you.